Francis now hours away from stepping onto U.S. soil, but tonight he gave a final farewell to the people of Cuba, holding a mass in Santiago de Cuba before he arrives in our nation's capital. Federal agents are preparing to protect the Pope at all costs. The Night Team's Jonathan Hall live in Washington, D.C. with the latest ahead of the Pope's visit. John.
Adam, good evening. Hard to believe, but Pope Francis will be here in 18 hours for what will be a historic trip to the United States, his very first. But first, as you say, he wrapped up his last full day on the island of Cuba. And tonight, he was in the community of Santiago and the shrine of Cuba's patron saint. He also marked the anniversary of the day he decided as a teenager in Buenos Aires, Argentina, to become a priest. Earlier in the day, the Pope celebrated Mass in Old Green, pressing an estimated 150,000 people there to dream big dreams and to avoid being boxed in by ideologies. He also rode through the streets, which were lined with the faithful. Francis was accompanied by Boston's Cardinal, and he is loving being in Cuba.
I've been coming to Cuba for 30 years, and I've never felt such a sense of hope and enthusiasm and renewal as exists here now. And the Holy Father's presence has been just such a blessing.
Well, the 78-year-old pontiff is getting some rest before he gets on a plane and heads to Washington, and the security here will be at unprecedented levels.
It's one of the biggest security challenges in United States history as Washington gears up to welcome Pope Francis and keep him safe.
Well, I think this Pope's visit is going to be a security nightmare because the Pope doesn't like overt security around him. He doesn't want that security presence.
Francis is a man of the people. He rides around in an open Pope-mobile, and that can make him vulnerable. But police and federal agents with the Secret Service and Homeland Security are doing what they can here, setting up barricades at his various stops.
Obviously, the lone wolf is a concern, as well as any kind of a group attack or an IED. Any of those are a concern, but we don't really set up our security specifically to one threat or another.
The risk the Pope faces in the U.S. was on display in Havana, where the police arrested 3 political dissidents who tried to approach him. There will be an enormous police presence everywhere, with trained eyes scanning the crowds. People at the different venues, including the National Shrine and St. Patrick's Church, will have to pass through security checkpoints.
We've been working on this for 9 months or more. Our field offices really started it.
3 other popes have also visited the U.S., including Pope John Paul II, who came to Boston in 1979, and most recently Pope Benedict, who came to New York City and D.C. in 2008. Security always a challenge when the Pope comes to town, especially one as engaging as Francis.
He doesn't want that security presence. He wants to mix and mingle with the people, which is completely understandable and I think very honorable, but it creates a security nightmare for Secret Service agents.
Of course, the Pope has his own security detail, and the head of the U.S. Secret Service told us he traveled to Rome recently to meet with Vatican security so they could all be on the same page. We're live in Washington. Jonathan Hall, 7 News Night Team.
All right, and stay with 7 News for coverage of the Pope's visit every step of the way. Jonathan Hall will be with Dan Housley, and we'll follow the Pope from D.C. to Philadelphia and New York. They'll bring us live reports all along the way.